Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Today, we are discussing a lovely rose gold, historically inspired diver launched by Glashütte Original of Saxony back in 2019. Part of the Spezialist collection. This is the SeaQ, and the watch that you see right here is 39.5 millimeters in diameter in rose gold. It's fairly thin too, at 12.4 millimeters thick and fairly short at 47.3 millimeters lug-to-lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, there is a large panorama datum version of this watch, but it's less historically true and it's tougher to wear. This is going to be the one you want to wear on a smaller wrist, as given the sub 48 millimeter lug-to-lug, I can recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. So even a lady might want to give this one a shot, as the short lug span, the relatively thin profile, and the wearable sub 40 millimeter case all conspire to make this a viable unisex option, at least in some instances. And you can see, although it does have a little bit of a sheer case profile, its absolute thickness of 12.4 means it will slide underneath dress cuffs if you want to wear this with formal attire. The strap makes for a nice tonal contrast here. You can see there's a black binding stitch that matches the ceramic insert of the bezel, but for the most part it is a sort of silver gray that contrasts with the warm rose gold of the case and of the clasp. Now, taking a quick look, you can see the way this is all sized up is that we have the clasp, which locks into the strap using a pin, and then it actually has a twin trigger release system for a double fold action. It's a combination of satin and polish, and for a basic SeaQ that is not one of the panorama datum models, the inclusion of a full rose gold clasp feels really upscale and adds immensely to the value of the watch, as well as the perceived luxury of the experience. Now, the case is designed very closely to emulate the late 1960s RPTS 200 reference. So that is a vintage watch that was a diver made by the predecessor company of Glashütte Original, the GUB, back during the late 1960s. And so this watch is fairly close to that one, whereas the larger panorama datum SeaQ is more of a modern watch. So here we have a very minimal beveling on the profile of the lugs. They have a squared off end. The case band has an unusual use of vertical satination, usually on a dive watch or any watch that has satin on the side. It's longitudinal. This vertical look is a little bit different. There's a concentric sort of brushed pattern that's dragged across the top of the lugs, combined with the refinement of a small bevel that's end to end, a crown that's alternately satinated with media blasting and polished, and then we have a bezel that has a very narrow polished lip, and then it has recesses that are media blasted. The action is highly refined 120 click, and the watch features plenty of luminescence in the dark. The index in the bezel is particularly large, and you'll note that all three hands are loomed, something I like to see on a dive watch, because especially that second hand, you really need to know your dive watch is running in the dark and in the depths before you start a dive and during a dive. If you're using it as a backup dive timer, you can't afford it to stop. With the loomed second hand, you will know for sure. Another upscale feature is the use of rose gold hands, applied indices, and numerals in a lovely vintage font with an open 6, and we have a vintage-inspired broad arrow minute hand. The dial is a lovely gloss black. We have a white on black date disc, and of course we have that ceramic insert on the bezel to help with the shock tolerance against scratches, scuffs, and abrasions. A lot of times anodized aluminum tends to age. This watch has the vintage look, but not the vintage material. So ceramic ringing sapphire, and it is sapphire, even though it has a wonderful domed camber and off-axis distortion like vintage plexiglass. This is a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal. Two setting modes, they're important. Let's just make sure first we're out of the date change danger zone. So we've activated hacking seconds here. So you could set the watch to a reference time down to the second. There is also a quick set mechanism for the date, so you can rapidly cycle that should the watch run down. Screw-down crown, again, vintage-inspired, so no crown guards. And then on the reverse side, we have the caliber 39-11. Automatic winding with a 40-hour power reserve. It's got the quick set, the hacking second. Pivots on 25 joules. It beats away at 4 hertz, and it's nicely decorated, as you could see, with a combination of stripes across the rotor and the bridges. A lovely solarized reduction wheel for the winding system. That's finished manually. We have black polished screw heads and a matching black polished stud holder and regulator, along with a swan's neck screwed fine adjustment mechanism. A good-looking movement that is made in-house by Glashütte Original and handsomely decorated across the board, including admittedly machine-assisted but handsomely laid bevels. This watch is 200 meters water resistant, and it is game on if you want to do diving. So reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this specialist collection. Glashütte Original SeaQ Diver.